right, good day, folks. So the much anticipated part 2 of the Solana Anchor blog tutorial with the Svelte front end JavaScript. Today, we're going to build the client side of what we did before, which was just the Anchor side with the Rust. So let's get right into it. So I know that we went through the Rust side last time, which was all this program stuff and the IDL. We're going to close that down for now. And what you'll notice is Anchor makes us an app folder. What we need to do is populate this app side with our front-end code. I'm going to use Svelte Kit. For those of you who are React, Vue, whatever framework you want to use, you can pretty much use anything. So what I'm going to do is in this tutorial, I'm going to focus on building sort of our Anchor SDK access library. And then in the second part or later on, we'll do the Svelte side. So that those of you who want to use another framework like React or Vue can use the Anchor library that we're going to build with your own framework. And those of you who like Svelte or want to use Svelte and stick around for that, you can. So do the Anchor library first, and then we'll do the front end specific stuff for Svelte second. I might have to dip into it just to get the front end to work. But that's what we're going to do. So just to frame this up, for those of you who are interested in using Svelte, we'll do a quick little, again, like this is bare bones. I haven't initiated anything with this yet. So we have to really create it from scratch. Let's go back to this window here. So really all you do is npm init Svelte next, and then the name of the folder. Anchor already creates an app folder for you. So it's probably going to give me a bit of a problem if I try to make it into a folder that already exists. But I believe we can just force it to override it anyway. So there we go. It says move my recording thing. So we have the choice between a demo app and skeleton project. I'm going to choose the demo app because that's going to pre-populate everything that we want. So go enter. I'm going to opt for TypeScript because we get it for free. Svelte will set it up as TypeScript for us without really much cost. If we don't put the types in, it's fine. It'll still compile. And I'll use Prettier for formatting. So that sets up our project in the app folder, which is great. And if we go over here to the app, we can see that our source and boilerplate is all there. And as you can see, what we need to do is cd into the app folder and npm install, and that'll get everything set up so that we can build our library and then connect it to the front end. What I'll do is I'll make a folder here, and we're going to call it new file Anchor client, and we can make it TypeScript because we've got it enabled. And right here we're going to put all our Anchor access tools and functions, right? Tools and functions in here. Our app has installed, so we're ready to go. And now we just have to start. First thing we're going to need is this Anchor library here. We're going to import project serum Anchor, right? So you just npm install it. Down here in the terminal, npm install project serum Anchor. And that'll give us the client library that we can use to access Anchor. While that's being installed, let's just put that up here. We're going to bring in everything under the namespace Anchor. Everything that you see that I'm doing here, I've cribbed from the Project Serum Anchor website, which is here under their GitHub IO. Everything that we're doing is basically right here in the generating a client part of the website. They also have a couple of examples here in GitHub that you can also use as an example. And that's what we'll basically be doing. So you can see that they basically have this here. We're going to expand upon this and make it bigger, badder, and lovelier. So as you can see, that you import the serum, you need to import the IDL, import the program ID, and then build it all out. Where I left off last time, we had a deploy script here called, no, we didn't build the deploy script, did we? Realizing that I didn't cover building the deploy script last time. So we're going to do that now. The last time we got up to anchor build, but we didn't quite get to anchor deploy. So let's build a deploy script. We want to deploy our script onto the DevNet. So let's go ahead and do that. We need a file. Let's call it deploy. It'll be JavaScript. It doesn't have to be TypeScript. Before we can do anything with our code, we need to be able to deploy it. So let's build a script that we can use to deploy to DevNet. Okay. So the first thing we're going to need is to run a function to deploy it. So let's build this out. So in order to deploy, we need to know. So the first thing we need to determine is this going to be a deploy script or an upgrade script? So there's a couple of ways we can go about this. So let's base whether we're going to deploy it or upgrade it based on whether we've got program authority key files on hand already. So what does this mean? Well, when we deploy it to Solana, somebody's got to pay for it. Somebody has to pay for the deployment. That payment's made with a key pair that's stored in a key file, likely somewhere on our hard drive. So let's say if the key file exists, we will, So if the key file doesn't exist, create it and use this to deploy. And if it doesn't exist, if it does exist, keep in mind. So doesn't exist, create it. Does exist, use it to upgrade. Okay, so what is this key file? Well, let's say we're going to save it in our deployment file. So let's call it oops, I need to put just want this script to run once. Let's call it program authority key file name, and let's save it in the deploy directory. So we're going to need deploy directory, and we're going to name it program authority key pair.json. And you know what? That's the file name. What we need is the file itself. So we'll resolve the path from our current working directory / this path up here in order to use directory name with ES modules. We actually have to do a little bit of meta magic and back the train up a little bit here. In order to use directory name, we need to have file URL to path. File URL to path comes from URL. So essentially, file URL to path gives us directory name, which gives us the program authority key file, which leads us to be able to check whether it exists or not in FS. Thank you, ES modules. But we also need dir name. That's right, we need this dir name here too. We get that from path. So now, all this file system magic enables us to determine whether or not we've got this key file or not. And based on whether we've got a key file or not already, we'll figure out whether we need to create it or use the one that we found. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure that anchor build was run. And by doing that, what we're going to do is we're going to spawn sync, which is Node.js language for run this command anchor build standard input output inherit. In order to run spawn, we've got to have spawn cross spawn salts. We'll go include spawn to our import path. So we're going to make sure that it's built, and then we want to create our program authority key pair. So how are we going to do that? Well, with Solana, all we need to do is create a new key pair to get the actual keys. In order to use key pair, we need to import key pair from the Solana Web3.js library. We'll be using this library a lot. Web3.js key pair. So on the Solana Labs GitHub, they've got all of the definitions all done. So we're going to be using key pair. Key pair used to be called account. Account was deprecated. That account, the accounts used to be called accounts, but it's deprecated since 1.10. Use key pair instead. So we grab key pair from that Solana library and we make a new key pair. That's all fine and dandy. So that's our key pair, right? So what else do we need? So that will create us an empty key pair, but we need some funds in it. Since we're going to use this key pair to pay for the deployment, we need to drop some funds in. Since we're using DevNet, we can use the airdrop feature. So we need a connection up here. So we'll say, let's say the connection is a new connection, and we need a connection from Solana Web3 as well. We're going to connect that to the DevNet with a confirmed status, but we want to confirm that the transaction has gone through so that we know that our funds have been sent so that we can do our deploy. So we're going to wait for the confirm. So connections, once we have a connection, we can take the connection down here and we can request the airdrop. This is not popping up the way it should. Press the airdrop. We need to use our public key from up here. Public key. And we need to define how much we want to drop. So we can use LAMP ports per soul. That's basically one soul. So you have to request the airdrop in LAMP ports. And so you can take LAMP ports per soul and like multiply it by 5, and you'll get 5 sol that is dropped in there. Okay. So now we've got the key pair, we've got the connection, we've got requested an airdrop from the DevNet into that connection. And the last thing we're going to do is just to wait for the connection. So let signature equals, got to wait for it. And then the signature here, we'll take our connection and we will confirm transaction on that signature. And if we wait for this, this lets us know that our airdrop has gone through and that we do have the LAMP ports, which means we can carry on with the deploy. So we need the key pair, we need the airdrops, we need them confirmed so we can deploy. Okay, so once we've got that, we can carry on. So let's put some outputs here just so that we know what we're doing. Whoops. So we can kind of track it in the terminal as this goes, and it'll show our key pair. Then what we want to do is then write that from memory to the disk so that when we call deploy, it can read it from the disk and send it off. It also saves our key pair for the next deploy. If we kept it in memory, we would not be able to use it next time. So what we're going to do is we're going to write this key file from the secret key into the string. So essentially, the key file is the secret key bytes. So we take the key pair, we get the secret key from the pair. Buffer from is changing the key pair secret key to bytes. We wrap the bytes in this bracket so it becomes a JSON file. And then we're writing that to the file system. That saves our secret key in bytes to the file system. Nifty, right? Now we need to deploy it. So I'm just going to do a little thing here where we say that that method is deploy. Let's put the method up here. Because remember, we've got the two options. We've got deploy, which we just finished doing, and we're also going to have upgrade, because once we deploy it once, any subsequent deploys will be actually an upgrade to the same program. What we'll do then is, after we determine which method we're going to use, so let's just leave this as to do for now. We're going to spawn sync. So the command is anchor. Everything starts with anchor, and the only thing that differs after that is what arguments you're going to make. So just to give you an idea, what we're going to do down here is go upgrade. So here we will just use the nifty spread operator to parse out whether it's deploy or operate. It's just going to stick those in our array for this command for spawn sync. But also for devnet, we've got to say which cluster it's going to be. So provider. Now, if you go, actually, I should do this properly. If you go to the Anchor website, scroll all the way down here, CLI commands, cluster, jump to cluster. Where's the cluster? Yeah, it's here somewhere. Cluster list. I'm not quite sure where I found that. Was it in help? Maybe it was help. Subcommands cluster. If we wanted to deploy to devnet, we have to go provider.cluster. And then we have to say that it's devnet. And we also have to provide provider.wallet, our wallet, which is the whole reason we did this key file in the first place, so that we could use that to read. Now, if you're not running on Windows like me, you could probably use Anchor's built-in workspaces to do this, but we're going to practice deploying, because I always say deploy early, deploy often. So you want to get the file out there and make sure that it's deployed, make sure you know how to deploy, because the whole point of doing this is get it deployed in the first place. So let's save that. And then we just need to tell spawn sync what to do with the input output. So we'll just inherit that. So this lines up programmatically Anchor deploy to the cluster devnet using the wallet key file that we just set up and funded. Now that we've done that, the other thing I want to show you guys is the IDL. I want to be able to use the IDL in my front end. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to copy the file, and the IDL is here in target IDL, and there it is there, right? So I can actually go right click, copy path, go back here, right? And actually, if I want to use this code for future, oops, these are all backwards. I'm going to use this code for future projects. What I'm going to do is call this project name, and I'll be able to take the project name. So somewhere up here, just go constant project name equals, let's call this blog tutorial, right? Blog tutorial. Since in my previous kick at this, I called it Soul Blog. We call it blog tutorial. You can call it whatever you want. This one happens to be called blog tutorial because I'm redoing this again to show everybody how to do this. So project name blog tutorial, and so it'll go to target / IDL / whatever project name is. In this case, it's called blog tutorial. And I want to paste that in our front end. So where I'm going to put it is in app, because the front end is in the folder app. I chose SvelteKit, so I've got a file called source src, And I've got a library, and I'm just going to stick it in a new folder called IDL, and I'm going to let it be called the same thing, which is project name /JSON. So that I'll copy it over, put some error handling in there, just in case didn't go. I can give it a go here. I probably missed something. So let's just see. There's a couple ways you can do this. So I've got this as under my package. What I can do is make a shortcut under scripts and call this one deploy. Whoops, deploy. And then just call nodes deploy.js. That way, in my little shortcuts down here, it'll call deploy. So with our deploy script setup, we can go npm run deploy. We got an error. Cannot use import outside of module. Okay, so we have to specify that our script is a module. We can fix that. Let's try that again. Can't find cross spawn. Oh, I didn't install cross spawn. Install cross spawn. And we're putting this in the root directory because that's where we're running our script from. Actually, should have used yarn. Whoops, it's going to screw up our log files, but okay. And now let's try deploy. Okay, path not defined. Did I not define path? Path is right there. Forgot to import path from path. Okay. Need fs as well because fs wasn't defined either. So I'm going to import fs slash. All right, I didn't put the separator in there. So I also need the separator for this slash here. Just put this up here. Slash separator. That should be it. This whole method, I need to actually put this in parentheses and then add this to the end of it for it to self-execute. Now that we've got that, it should actually execute. Give us an output. Anchor is not recognized. Did I not install Anchor either? Right. This is the problem with Windows. You got to do this in your Linux command, right? So I'm just going to switch to blog tutorial. Now let's run npm run deploy. This is what I meant about running it in Linux. Doesn't like that either. What do I got here? Program ID. Oh, program ID. Did I not specify the program ID? So because we ran the script, but there was an error in it, it might have partially executed and deployed to DevNet. So we've just got to check to see. Obviously, this is cutting edge stuff. Solana address key target. What's it again? Target slash deploy slash. Where's my terminal? Blog. I'm just looking right here at the key pair. I just want to generate the key pair. Blog tutorial dash key pair.json. I just want to generate the public key for our blog, right? Which should be the same in our program anyway. So here, yep, the BK, right? Is it the same? Yeah, BK. What we can do is look that up on the Solana Explorer. Yeah, for DevNet, switch this to DevNet. And this will allow us to see whether anything has been done with this or not. So no, it hasn't. So it hasn't actually deployed. anything to this, and we can double check by doing the same thing for the authority key pair, right? So if I go to deploy, just the deploy folder, and we go program, did I capitalize that? No, just program authority right up here. It says program authority key pair, program authority key pair. Should give us the same thing, and we can check this public key in the Explorer. And the reason why I'm doing this is because if we've deployed it already, yeah, see, it did deploy. If we had a successful deploy, which cost us, no, wait, that was probably the airdrop. Okay, this is the airdrop. So this is our airdrop, not a. The reason I'm checking this is once we deploy with a program authority key, we're kind of committed to it, and you can't really erase things and start over from scratch. We had a bug in the deploy code. We're missing some scripts, and I kind of want to reuse the code, but in order to do that, I'd have to delete the key. In order to delete the key, you have to make sure that it wasn't deployed with the key, because if it was deployed with the key, you kind of need that key. Otherwise, you've got to wipe the whole slate clean and start over from scratch. But since it wasn't deployed, the only transaction we have on this was the airdrop. We can actually, because that's as far as the script got, can actually reset this and try running our script again without having to code in anything any more complicated. So what I can do is in my deploy folder, just get rid of this key pair by deleting it and going back to our Linux terminal here and running deploy again. Now that we've fixed the bugs in the deploy code, it should deploy. It'll make a new key for us and it'll deploy against that program authority, and we'll see how we make out. So looks like it's working quite nicely. So it's running Anchor build first because there was no build. Finishes the build, and then it says to deploy this program, do that, but we've coded in our deploy logic. The method is deploy, deploying to DevNet. What else do we have here? You can see it'll do a number of transactions because it takes more than one transaction to deploy. And it looks like we are golden. It's finalizing the transaction. Ooh, I got an error. All right, so when I copied the file over, it looks like it doesn't like the fact that there wasn't no such file or directory copy file. Okay, that's not critical. That's just a little bit of automation. What we can do is just manually copy it over for now until I figure out what the bug was. Didn't like something there. Maybe I've screwed up something in the path. We leave this as an exercise to the student to figure out. So what I'm going to do is I just wanted to copy over that IDL into our front end. So it just makes deploying the front end a bit easier if you're going to do something like Vercel, because these are in two different directories. It kind of messes things up, I found. So I'm just going to copy and paste it just to do a little shortcut. But essentially what we want to do is target IDL, take that and put it in our front end somewhere, maybe in the lib. So I'll just paste it in there. And now this will be available to our front end now that we've deployed. So what we can do is go back to the Explorer. Let's grab our public keys just to see what's going on here. So under the program authority, now this is a new fresh key because we reran deploy. If we look up this program authority, we should see a couple things. We should see an airdrop, which, I mean, it takes a gazillion transactions to deploy a Solana program. These are the gazillion transactions. But as you can see by any one of them, it's just loading. It takes a bit of Solana at a time, loads it up. They won't all be 1.3 Sol, and it does go back and forth as it's loading the program. But you can see that it's deployed the program. And that's our program ID. So if you go to the program, put the program ID in there, which is that BK, that doesn't look right. Why is that not right? Showing up yet? It should say executable. Ah, here we go. Just took a bit of refreshing for the transactions to confirm and the Explorer to reflect what's actually going on the blockchain. So this is our program address on the DevNet. It's deployed. through our deploy script. That's the address of the program. That's our rent exempt balance of Solana. The data is actually stored somewhere else, the deploy slot, and we are the upgrade authority, this BIQ. If you go back, what's our address here? Program authority, yeah, BIQ right there. BIQ, BIQ. So we're the upgrade authority. We're the only ones because we've got that key that can upgrade it. If we go back to our code, we didn't yet put the upgrade part in. So let's do that. This part right here, we said up here in our logic was if we don't have a program authority key file, then make it, fund it, save it, and use that to deploy. If we do have a program authority key file, which we do now because it's built it out now that we fixed all the bugs in this deploy folder here, we're going to use that to upgrade. So let's do the upgrade, shall we? So in order to upgrade, there's a couple of things that we need. So the first thing we need to do is we need to read the file. We need to read the file. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. We're going to have to make a function to read that key file. This is actually gets a little bit interesting. Read, let's call it read key file, and we're going to go key pair file. And what are we going to do? So that key file, let's call it KF, was at read file sync. Well, so let's read the key file from the system. We need to parse it out. So it's a JSON file. We can parse it from that, it looks like, numbers, numbers separated by commas and brackets. So we need to parse that into, an object essentially. So let's take the key file, make it a string and parse it. So now we'll have access to the object version of that. Once we have the object version, we actually need, let's just type it to a uint array, uint8 array. Okay, suppose we could use a buffer here, but we'll use uint8 array. So now it's an array, and now what we need to do is take that array and make it a key pair. So const key pair. Now we need a new key pair, and we can use the key file as the key pair. So that should give us the key pair, and then we just need to return this key pair. So that should work for reading the key file. So now what we can do is go back down to our deploy, our upgrade, and say, okay, we want to read, what was the name of that? We called it this one up here, program authority key file. So let's call it the key pair. I believe we have this somewhere. Yep, it's already defined up here. Should probably put this up here so that it can be accessed by either section of this if, and just assign it based on whether it's deploying or upgrading. So key pair is now going to be based on the read file, which is us parsing that key file out. So we'll have the key pair. Let's just put a little console note in there so we know what's going on when we're watching all this happen. So we can confirm that we know what's going on. And now for upgrade, we need more than just upgrade. What do we need? We need upgrade. And I believe these are also in the right here in the anchor doc. So it goes like this, right? So it says anchor upgrade, the program.so, the program ID, and the program ID. Perfect. We need to put, let's use target /deploy / and we'll use our fancy schmancy naming up here, because remember earlier we called it project name blog tutorial. And if we just double check that against our file system here in target deploy, there it is right there, blog_tutorial.so, blog_tutorial.so. Perfect. So we also need, what else do we need? We need the program ID, because we have to explicitly say which program we are upgrading. Program ID. I believe, do we have this saved somewhere? I don't think we've done this part yet. I don't think so either. So let's say the program ID. Same sort of thing, right? We need to read the program ID from the key file, which is right here, the blog tutorial key file. So we need to read that out. So luckily we've already got a read key file method on the go. So all we need to do is use that. We need the program. Did we do that yet? No, we haven't. So we're going to need something very similar to what we did with the program authority key pair JSON. Only we need this for the program key file. So essentially, let's just put those together. Essentially, let's just paste a lot of the same for target deploy. And actually, we didn't call it soul blog here. We called it, yeah, see, this is the problem with doing multiple projects, right? Move this to the top. So this project name we're using is tutorial. So project name - key file. So that'll give us the name. That'll resolve that name to that path. And then we can take this key file and read that. Whoops, wrong key. Read that here. That will give us key pair, right? Let's see, let program key pair. Program key pair. Okay, so now we have the key pair read from disk. We need to take that program key pair, hit the public key, and read it as a string. That will be our program ID, right? Now that we have program ID read from the key file, we can put that in our program as a variable. So we can reuse this code in future projects with any project name and any project ID, program ID. It'll just automatically fill it in, which is great. Save that. Now, when we go back to our command line here, let's get rid of this. Back to our command line, and if we npm run deploy again, it'll run our deploy script. Only this time, because we've got the authority key pair already saved and already made, and because we've already deployed, this time it'll run through upgrade instead of running through deploy. It'll take this else block instead of this if block, which is great. It means we're going to automate our whole deploy process, right? Now that we have our deploy script all crafted up, we can run npm run deploy in the terminal, the Linux terminal, and use our script to deploy. And as you can see, since we've already used this code and this key to deploy, we are running through upgrade instead of deploy, which takes, there's our upgrade deploy program ID. And you'll see it'll go through the number of transactions. Hopefully DevNet plays nice with us and doesn't get hung up on the transactions, which looks like it already has. 518 transactions sent. So what I'm going to do is break out of this. And hopefully we can run this again without any issues. And DevNet plays nice with us. Again, the method we're using is upgrade because we already have a program authority key. If we tried to deploy using our key, it wouldn't work. All right, now our transactions are going through, our transactions are confirmed. And once it is up and running, what we can do is, I'm just going to grab this program ID here. And we're going to go to the Solana Explorer here. Come on, Solana Explorer. Plug in our program ID, and you can see that it is upgradable, it's deployed, and a few seconds ago we deployed it, which is fantastic. So that's it. So that's what we have, folks. This part of the tutorial, the deploy code section, took a little bit longer than I suspected it would. So I'm going to put the whole front end section in part 3. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you want to see how we craft the svelte part with the front end and the library, head on over to the next section. I got to chunk these up or else YouTube won't let me upload them. All right. So we'll see you on the other side.